What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Nerdin' Out Sports. It is Rob and Donald, and we are back in Giants misery because the Giants just coming off of a loss, a brutal loss in Miami to the Dolphins, and a lot of conversation has come out of this game with the quarterback, with the head coach. I'll just go right to you, Donald. Give me your overall thoughts on the game before we get into everything else.
It was just a brutal game, man. It was unwatchable. You tried to care, but by the end of the first quarter, I was watching Red Zone. I had Red Zone on the laptop, and I had the Giant game on the big TV, and I was like, I'm gonna just look at my laptop because this was boring. It was terrible football, terrible for the Giants. Like, listen, the Dolphins defense. When we were looking at the win loss in our first pod, I thought the Dolphins game would be a banana skin for us because their defense is very stingy, and it proved that way. Plus, they do have some decent players on offense. Kaczynski's all right, and Jalen Waddle's a very solid receiver. And Tua, he gets the job done. He's an efficient quarterback. That's all that is asked of him within the system, and I don't see how that's a bad thing. You got Logan Ryan. What are you talking about? Did you see Logan Ryan's comments?
I did. I think it's very poor timing considering you just kind of got diced up by this guy and you're talking about, oh, I can throw 2-yard passes to the left. Like, just keep your mouth shut. I know the defense was far from the issue this Sunday, but don't comment when you just came off of a loss like this. I mean, it looks bad, and I like Logan Ryan, but it's a bad look, and it's another bad look on a bunch of bad looks this team has had over the last decade. So I didn't like it one bit.
People in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. It's as simple as that. He has absolutely no leg to stand on from this organizational standpoint. Everything is broken within this organization. The defense is the last thing to worry about, although I still think that we're a little bit too much bend and not break and very little pass rush schemes. But in general, defense not the issue. Offense is completely ruined. I don't even know where to start with, and we've got the worst coaching, some of the worst coaching in the league. I'm pretty convinced of that.
Yeah. Look, the game Sunday, it was brutal. It's the best way to put it. And I was trying to convince myself to be like, oh, I want to give Joe Judge another year. I want to see what he can do with maybe a new staff. But I mean, I saw on Twitter from a good friend of mine, Ash Money, great content creator. You should also check him out. He said it. What does Joe Judge do well? Yep. Give me one thing that he does well, because I can't think of it. He doesn't manage the clock at all. He's a special teams guy, and our special teams unit is not good. And that's something that we've brought up plenty of times on here already. We can't move the ball. I know he's not the only guy that's involved with the offense, but he has a say in what this team does offensively. And it's clear because he fired the offensive line coach last year. He didn't want Jason Garrett. He wanted his guys. Well, now he's got his guys, and we still can't move the football. So what exactly is Joe Judge doing well? Because even his motivational stuff isn't necessarily working anymore, because he's still saying he saw positives in a game like that Sunday. There were no positives. You're not winning games in this NFL when you score 9 points. I don't care if it's Mike Glennon. I don't care who's behind this offensive line, because I've seen quarterbacks score with a bad offensive line. Russell Wilson's had a bad offensive line for like his entire career almost. He's able to put up points. Eli Manning did it. Justin Herbert just did it last year. Daniel Jones did it in 2019. So it's not, the offensive line isn't good. It's awful, but you should be able to score more than 9 points. And if you're expecting to win games when you're scoring 3 field goals or maybe 4 field goals a game, then it's a recipe for disaster. Out of our 4 wins, we've scored 20 points in 3 of them. I mean, there's a reason why you have to score in this NFL. You're not going to keep teams from scoring points in this league anymore, unless you're going against the Giants. That's the only way you're going to stop teams from scoring. If you have a really good day defensively, you're still probably going to give up a touchdown at least, like we did against Philly. Mm-hmm. You're not winning games scoring 9 points by checking down and not having a single guy to block for Saquon Barkley. We can talk about him forever. How bad he's looked. It's just bad across the board. There is not a single positive on this offense besides Andrew Thomas. That's really it. He's the only guy that I can look at on this offense and say, man, he's playing well. Nobody else I can say that for, because Galladay's either hurt or he's not getting involved. Tony, he's hurt. When he's out there, he looks good. Barkley looks terrible. I mean, Shepard hasn't been out there. Slayton has bricks for hands. Evan Ingram makes a catch every now and again. It's just a flat-out bad offense, and I think an overhaul is needed, because if we stick with what we have right now, next year, it's just going to be the same old story, and we're going to be talking about this a year from now like, hey, should we switch head coaches? What should we do? And I'm sick of this never-ending loop.
But if the big question, as you say, is what is he good at? What is Joe Judge good at? He's not an offensive or defensive guy, so we can't hang our hat on either side of the ball. So then you have to look at the way that he manages the game, or the way that he manages the team. And as I've discussed, his clock management is all-time bad. It's not even passable. I mean, it's not even competent. It's completely incompetent. It's actually staggering how bad he is at clock management. I mean, once again, there was a scenario where we're 3rd and 30. He called a timeout to avoid a delay of game. And then there was a sack, and then there was a delay of game, all in the same drive. And we ended up 3rd and 30. It's like, how do you coach that bad? How is it possible to be that bad at your job? And so there's that. Then he's maddeningly conservative as well. He's so insanely conservative. I mean, there was a situation where we had the ball in Dolphin territory. It was 4th and 2, and he punted the ball. So he's conservative to the point where it's just stupid at this point. I mean, what is there to lose when you're 4 and 8, you're bottom of the conference? You need a win. Try and win. Go for it. You don't trust Saquon Barkley to go 2 yards? Why did you select him with the number 2 overall pick? No, not him, but the Giants. You don't trust your running back to go 2 yards on a screen or on a handoff, then I don't know what to tell you. That's on you. You spent all that money on Galladay with 3 catches. You couldn't find a route for Galladay for a 2-yard route. See if you can make a catch. There's. I'm just saying, it's so maddeningly conservative and stupid. And my biggest issue with Joe Judge is what he said after the ball game. Delighted with what he saw, apparently. And did you see his press conference?
It was tough to watch. Much like Giants.
Did you watch his press conference though?
I think I stopped after he said that he saw positives. I couldn't listen to it.
Oh yeah, he named a bunch of things that he thought was great. You just sounded like a babbling fool at this point, which is ironically what Mike Francesa just tweeted after his exchange with the reporters. All we hear from the Giant organization is how much Mara loves Joe Judge's accountability. But exactly how accountable is he? Because over the last few weeks, he's used headsets as an excuse. He's used the NFL not helping him with the headsets as an excuse. He's used Jason Garrett as an excuse. He fired him. He's now gone through 2 assistants. He's only been in the job 2 years. Less than 2 years, 1.5 years. He basically publicly went and said that Garrett was doing a bad job. So, he uses him as an excuse. So all the excuses are coming from him. And then the timeout mistakes and the fact, remember the time where he wasted a challenge flag on something that was non-challengeable? And then he said afterwards that he knew he was doing all along. No, you didn't. You're just basically flat out you're just talking for the sake of talking, man. It sounds a lot like a used car salesman, man. It really does. And I hate to say that because I wanted to give him a try. And last year I loved what he was selling. I actually thought that he genuine about it. But then the more you think about it, the whole "I'm a tough guy" thing. I'm a tough guy, but it's a soft team. So how tough is he? Because the team's very soft. As soon as it takes one blow, it's gone. It's done. That Dolphin game, they didn't even play. They did not play. The defense did. Offense didn't. Nothing at all.
And you can't be putting your defense in that position where they have to continue to get stop after stop. The Giants' defense is solid. I'm not going to say they're great. I'm not going to say they're elite. They're a solid group. You can win with the defense that we have. But when your offense is going 3 and out every single drive or turning the ball over and barely moving the ball, so your defense has to come right back on the field, eventually you're going to get tired. You're going to give up a big play that's going to lead to points, whether that's a touchdown or a field goal. And unfortunately for us, this happens every single week where the defense looks really good up until the last 2 minutes of the first half, and then they get torched and they give up 7. Happens every single week. It happened again on Sunday. And once the Dolphins scored at the end of the half, I'm like, all right, I have a bad feeling this game is over. Then we cut the lead to 4, and then the Dolphins scored again. I'm like, it's over. We're not getting in the end zone with Mike Glennon. We can't move the football. It's just, it's bad that it's come to that. We're a team, and this is something that Kush, a.k.a. The Hub, has pointed out. When a team puts up 14 points on the Giants, you feel like it's over. That is awful. That is an awful feeling to have as a fan where you don't have confidence that your team can put up 14 points because that is what it's come to for this offense. And back to Judge, he's calling timeouts with like 6 seconds left in the quarter.
That was brilliant.
He's wasting timeouts. I mean, it's bad. It looks bad. And the regression, that's really, because I'm in the same boat as you. I was a big believer in Judge. I defended him as much as I possibly could, even when reporters are like, oh, this is not going to work, players are going to revolt. That hasn't really been the case, but you're seeing regression from a better roster. And a lot of people want to point out, well, Tom Coughlin struggled his first year. Well, Tom Coughlin's team won 11 games the next season. They went from a 6-win team to an 11-win team. Then they went to 8-8, but still made the playoffs. They were continuously in the conversation every single year after his first year. The Giants' season has been over, even though they're still technically in the race. The season's been over since like week 4. So we're seeing regression. Every single week we're seeing something else this team is doing that you're like, why can't they improve? And the fact that it's taking 12 games and we can't put a consistent offense that can put points on the board. Look, I get it. Our quarterback is hurt. But would we have scored that many points with Daniel Jones? Maybe we get a touchdown. Maybe we get in the end zone once. But that's it. Because we weren't scoring that many points with Jones anyway. So it's bad. We're using Pharaoh Cooper as a main piece of our offense right now because everybody's either hurt or can't do their job. I mean, and then before the game, they said Nate Solder has been the clear better player at right tackle over.
Yeah, that was a weird one.
I mean, to praise Solder, who's been clearly bad, and then to knock Matt Parrott, who's done everything you've asked of him, despite being they called him a third-round project, which is exactly what he was, a third-round pick. He was a project player. He looked okay last year for a project guy. He's looked okay this year when they put him out there. Putting him in here at left tackle when Thomas was hurt, he wasn't great, but he wasn't Solder level of bad. And every time he's out there, you just like, why isn't he starting? And then they say Solder's been the better player. Is this? And then they want to talk about the Giant way and this organization's so great and classy. I don't see it. Like, how are you going to knock a younger player like that and then go ahead and give praise to a guy who's been around forever and he's clearly not the answer? You have Matt Parrott. The season's over. Why not see what you have in him the rest of the way? Because maybe he pans out to be a good enough tackle to where you can have him and Thomas on the ends of your offensive line, and you don't have to use as much draft capital this year to improve this offensive line. What is the risk? That's my question. What is the risk? What do you have to lose by benching Nate Solder?
That's a great question. I mean, it was a great point because when I raised my eyebrows as well when they were talking, when they're basically talking down Parrott, who is a Gettleman pick. Gettleman needs this pick to work out. I mean, third round picks are pretty important. You need to have a semi-starter for a third round pick. Someone who is capable of starting with your third round pick. Now, Gettleman has obliterated his previous third round picks. They've all been freaking absolutely embarrassing. But this one has actually been okay. He was fine last year. He projects as a swing tackle, which is valuable. You need someone that can step in at either left or right tackle. Now, he's a much better right tackle than he's left tackle. I don't think he's a very good left tackle, but he is at least functional. And I've not seen anything from Solder. Solder is done. He was done. I mean, he's been one of our worst free agent signings in the history of the New York Giants. It was a record deal for a left tackle at the time. He has not lived up even close to that contract. He never should have even been brought back this year. But they keep wheeling him out there, and he's a nice guy, and he's a good guy, and certainly not saying anything bad about Nate Solder. He's had a tough time with his family and stuff like that. I believe his kid was sick and things like that. So he's a very good person. Nothing about that. But I don't really understand why, in the process of bigging up Nate Solder, you have to tear down Matt Peart, who is younger, who has upside, and can help your offensive line, which is really struggling right now. It didn't make any sense at the time, so I completely agree with you. They've got problems all over the offensive line. I mean, this was a Dave Gettleman thing. I mean, the fact that he didn't draft one offensive lineman in last year's draft was egregious, because it was the depth of talent right down to the fifth round in terms of offensive linemen and guards in last year's draft. It's basically an egregious mistake. And then he had to go and try and cover it up by trading BJ Hill to Cincinnati and bringing in more deficient linemen. Will Hernandez had a horrifying game against the Dolphins on Sunday. He was just getting torched. He wasn't even there. You would have better having a turnstile in the New York subway there at guard. He was just ridiculous.
Those are tougher to get through than Will Hernandez.
Well, that's true. Probably easier to get through Hernandez. So to point out, Matt Peart, I agree with you. What you were saying about our offense, even if we had Daniel Jones, we'll just look at the points that we scored. 11 against the Rams, 14 against the Falcons, 13 against the Broncos, 17 against the Chiefs, and the Chiefs at the time had the worst defense in football, 10 against the Bucks, 13 against the Eagles. So I'm sorry, we were not going to score that much more against the Dolphins. We just aren't. Daniel Jones is not the guy that can put a team on his back. There's going to be a lot of people that defend him, but one thing you can absolutely say for a certainty is he can't carry a team on his back, because he's been struggling to find his targets all year. So even when healthy, and the blocking wasn't awful for Glennon. It's just Glennon's just not a good quarterback.
No, he's not.
I mean, he was so bad. He was so bad on Sunday, man.
Missing receivers by 10, 15 yards. I mean, it was awful. But I do want to bring this to Daniel Jones. Sure. There are now rumors, because he missed this past week with the neck injury, that he could miss the rest of the year, and obviously that would be bad, because I would rather see Jones than Jake Fromm or Mike Glennon. But does that mean they're going to use this as an excuse, because we didn't have our quarterback for the last half of the year? So when they do eventually bring back Joe Judge next year, which I think is going to be the case at this point, and they have Jones rolled out for another year, which I think should have been the case no matter what, but it's going to be an excuse. Jones was hurt. We didn't have our quarterback. We're going to roll it back out there one more year and see what we got. And as much as I'm not a believer in this quarterback class, I'm going to be sick of hearing the excuses by this organization going into next year, when it's clear that I think we need a change. I don't care anymore about, they keep firing coaches after 2 years. It's not working. Because if it was, even if this team was losing, we would be putting up more of a fight each and every week. That was the thing last year. We weren't a good team, but every single week except for like 2, we were putting up a fight. We were in these games. You're like, man, one more play could have changed that game. This past Sunday, we needed about 15 other plays to change this game. The game against the Bucks, we got absolutely embarrassed. The Rams embarrassed. We embarrassed ourselves in Washington and lost that game. We couldn't even beat the Falcons. We embarrassed ourselves against the Falcons. The Broncos had their way with us. This is not the same team from last year. So it's clear that whatever was working last year with Judge isn't working this year. So that's why I want a change. But to keep this topic on Daniel Jones, what is at this point, what is the ceiling with him? Like, I would much rather them just go with a stopgap veteran quarterback, a guy like Taylor, or even if Bridgewater would be available, something like that, and then go into the next draft, because they can't use a pick on a quarterback this year when they have so many other things they need to fill on this lineup. I want to get your opinion on that, about with Daniel Jones and what you think they should do.
It's a double-edged sword here, because if you look at where we're going to be picking in the draft, it's an ideal spot for a quarterback in an ideal world. We're going to lucky to maybe get one more win the rest of the year. The way that it's looking with the Chargers and the Cowboys, the Eagles, Washington, we'll struggle to maybe. I think the Bears would maybe be the one W that I can see at the top of my head. Maybe we still a second one, but either way, we are probably going to have 5 or 6 wins by the end of the year. We'll be picking in the top 6. Anyway, that's just our draft. And then the Bears, we'll probably have 2 picks in the top 10 almost certainly. That is ideal for selecting a quarterback. It really is, because here's why it's a double-edged sword. Say we trust Daniel Jones, or at least maybe enough to let him be the quarterback next year, right? And then we use our 2 top 10 picks on maybe an offensive lineman and edge rusher, right? Next year, when we're going to need a quarterback, let's face it, we probably will need to. We may not be in the position to do that, because we might just be league average. You know what I mean? Or just below that. We'll miss the playoffs. Maybe we'll have a couple more wins, but then we'll be picking near the bottom, and it'll be a hell of a lot more difficult to pick up in the draft in a much better, projecting better quarterback draft in 23. That's why it's a double-edged sword. I want to trust a new general manager this offseason to have a really good look at the quarterbacks in this draft. There's about 6, right? I'm not saying they're all great, but there's about 5 or 6 anyway that are worth looking at. Just see. I mean, I'm not saying that just select them, but just I want them to have a good evaluation, proper evaluation, not just be blinded by Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is probably going to project as, what would you say? I would say his ceiling is maybe 18th best quarterback in the league, I would say. Just average, maybe just below, slightly below. I think he can win you games if everything is perfect. But he's not the guy that's going to carry a team on his back. He's not even going to do what, I hate to say it, but what Heineke's doing for Washington. When the chips are down, Washington does tend to lead the team down the field in the fourth quarter. Jones cannot do that. He's never done it all year long, apart from his rookie year. So I'm not overly confident. Jones is still making all the same mistakes as he did in his rookie year and through college. It's very basic stuff that he's just not learned. The 2 things that he's really good at, deep ball and designed run plays. If he's asked to scramble, he tends to lose the ball or make inaccurate throws. And if his first option is not open, he tends to make inaccurate throws. So these kind of things he's not really improved on. So I don't see that suddenly magically fixing itself. I would say that the Giants need to look for another quarterback. This is the ideal opportunity to do it. If you're picking 2 picks in the top 10, you'd almost be tempted to use one of those picks to take a flyer on someone that you really, really like, and then maybe go and sign a stopgap quarterback like even Jimmy G or something like that for 1 year, and then you see from there. But I am not a Jones guy. I never have been. I don't think he's terrible. But from what the selection was, when we selected him 6th, he has been terrible because he's not that type of quarterback. He never was,
Yeah,
What would you say? Would you agree with that, or do you think I'm being harsh?
yeah. I agree with that because he hasn't lived up to it. You know, we've seen the flashes. I will say that. We've seen the flashes. Like, man, he can really be good enough. He hasn't shown the flashes of being elite, but he has shown the flashes of being good. Like, he's got what you need to succeed in today's NFL. He can run. He's quick. People really underrate his speed. He's a very fast guy, and you don't think about that when you see him because he's like this very tall, kind of weird-looking, lanky dude. But he can run. And we were coming off of, a decade plus of Eli Manning, who was very slow. So when you see a quarterback that's mobile, you're like, okay, we can win with that. He's got a good arm, but there are a lot of other things that he does wrong. Like he doesn't read the field well. He sticks that's the one thing everyone talks about. He looks at that one guy for 6 seconds, and everyone knows where he's going with the football. He's shown flashes of being very accurate. He's shown the times where he's very inaccurate. So there's too much, Jekyll and Hyde with him to be like, yeah, that's my guy. What I do think should be explored is maybe you sign a guy like Mariota this year. Let's say you move on from Jones, you get whatever you can for him, whether that's a third-round pick, whatever. You bite the bullet, you say, we were wrong. You sign that veteran quarterback, and you trade one of those 2 picks to get more future capital because there are going to be teams that need a quarterback this year that are going to be picking in the lower first round. If you got 2 top 10 picks, you can move one of those, still get an elite edge rusher, and get some really good linemen. This draft class is loaded with offensive line, and guys are going to slip to the second and third rounds, and you're going to be able to find a really good player in those rounds that can start for you on this offensive line. So I do think they should explore that, because if you have, let's say, the 4th and the 6th or 7th pick, that is really good value that a team is going to look to move up for and give you a lot. I mean, look what the Jets gave up to move up 3 picks a few years ago to get Darnold. They had to give up 3 second-rounders. So we got an extra first from the Bears last year to move up like 10 picks or whatever it was. We can get a lot more for a team trying to trade into the top 10 to get a quarterback. So I think that's something that should be explored. I want to believe in Jones, but I'm not seeing it. Especially this year, because this year it was all laid out for him. You got the go up and get it receiver. You got your running back in the fold. You got a dynamic rookie in Tony. Shepard was healthy. You still had Ingram. Slayton is perfectly fine as a 3rd or 4th receiver. Everything was laid out for him, and despite the offensive line being really bad, we haven't seen Jones. Early on, he was looking okay, but we weren't putting up touchdowns, though. We still weren't scoring. That's been the thing. If he was putting up points, if it was just our defense was playing average and giving up points as well, it's like, okay, at least the quarterback is still doing his part. That's not the case, though. So I do think it might be time to move on. Will a new GM want to do that is the question. I just don't know if you find a new GM and then they stick with Joe Judge. That's been my big thing.
Here's my worry. My worry. I think in the interview process, when John Mara is interviewing GMs, I think his first question is, are you going to be able to build around Daniel Jones? Because I think John Mara wants to keep Daniel Jones. He's a very loyal guy. It's all about the giant way with him. He already said last year that he thinks that he can win a Super Bowl with Daniel Jones. Ha, 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 ha. Hilarious. Not a chance. So I believe he's all in on Daniel Jones. So I think the next GM might have to work with Daniel Jones if he's going to get the job. Do you know what I mean? I get that feeling. There's rumors that was one of the first questions was Eli Manning was one of the first questions that was asked to potential GM candidates, and that's why they kind of went for in-house option with Gettleman, because they thought they could wheel it back with Eli. Do you have a feeling that John Mara is going to be too tied to his loyalty to try and stick with A, Joe Judge, and B, Daniel Jones? That's what I think.
Yeah, Mara is the root of all the issues with this team. He's awful. Him and Steve Tisch are just absolutely brutal. I really, 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 really wish that he would just blow everything up around him, because he can't go anywhere unless he sells a team. We know he's not selling a team. Get his family out of this organization, though.
Yeah.
Everybody else, everyone's tied to him. Blow it all up.
Chris Mara is VP of Clear Personnel, right?
There you go. Just get football minds, new football minds that are going to evolve with the sport, because we are too old school. Doesn't work anymore. You know, the old way, it's not the new NFL. This new league is about scoring points and being as creative as you can offensively. I know the Patriots just won a game last night where they ran the ball 97% of the time, but that's because there was hurricane force winds out there. It's a different story. This is a league where it's about putting up points any way you can. We can't do that. So a new GM is probably going to want his choice at head coach and quarterback. And if that's not in this draft class, it's going to have to be a veteran guy, like a Mariota, like a Tyrod, whoever else is available.
Would you give up first for Russell Wilson?
It's tough because we need an edge rusher. We need offensive linemen. So it's going to take a lot to get Wilson multiple first-round picks and then some. I like Russell Wilson a lot. He's a hell of a quarterback. But his biggest issue is they're not protecting him. So he would come here and we would have the same exact issue. We're not going to protect him. He's going to get hit left and right, and it's just going to be like, well, it's just Russell Wilson in a Giants jersey, and his wife would be happy to be in New York. That's really what it's going to come down to. I wouldn't do it because we have a lot of other issues to fix. If we were a quarterback away, if the line was there and the receivers were healthy and it was just really bad quarterback play, then yeah, I'd be like, give up the first-round picks, go get Wilson, even go get Watson. You know, I know there's a lot of issues there, but if we were a quarterback away, I would do it. We're not a quarterback away. You know, we're an offensive line, we're a quarterback, we're an edge rusher, we're potentially another corner, middle linebacker. We need a lot for this team to be consistently in contention. So
I would say that I actually think that if Russell Wilson is playing quarterback for us right this year, injuries aside, if he was fully healthy Russell Wilson playing this year, I can't see any reason why we wouldn't be better than Washington and Philadelphia. I can't see it because our defense is kind of there, although there's not enough pass rush. It's only really Ojulari who's providing any potential on the edge, and Quinn Rose from time to time. Interior LW. That's about it. But in terms of our secondary, it's elite in my opinion. With McKinney, with Bradbury's taking a step back this year, but he's very talented, and then on the other side, we're getting plenty of good coverage too. I mean, but the secondary's been very, very good. I think our defense would have been able to hold on, and I think that a quarterback who's able to find some receivers and will be less turnover prone and a bit more of an X factor about him. I think we could have easily have competed for the very last playoff spot. I think with Russell Wilson. I just think with a below average quarterback, which we've got right now, average to below average, I don't think he's capable of carrying a team like that.
I can definitely see that argument. I mean, we'd probably beat Washington, probably beat Atlanta. We'd have at least 2-3 more wins right now with Russell Wilson for sure. But would that be sustainable come playoff time, though? That's my biggest question, because that's the thing. So I think you really need to build around the rest of this roster. I know you want to get the quarterback first, but sometimes you have to get everything else in check. I think our defense is very close to where it needs to be. A couple of more pieces will definitely make it a lot better and close to being a top 10 defense. But there are just so many holes in this offense. I mean, even our receivers, there's the question marks of health. We gave big money to Golladay. He can't be on the field. High draft pick on Kadarius Toney. He's not on the field. We Sterling Shepard.
Oh my God.
Out of the field.
Toilet paper.
Yeah, I mean it's bad. There's a lot that needs to be done. So that's something that's going to be talked about, I'm sure, the rest of the way, because the games certainly aren't giving us much to talk about. But
what are your thoughts on Jake Fromm? Jake from State Farm. What do you think here is the potential starting at Sunday?
That pun has been overused so many times in the past 2 days. I'm sick of it. All I gotta say is I'll piggyback off of what Kush said last night. Start Kyle Rudolph in your fantasy leagues because you're going to be seeing a lot of targets if he's out there, seeing a lot of targets to old Kyle Rudolph. I don't know what people see in Jake Fromm. I don't know. He's not good. If he was good, he would have been anywhere else but a practice squad, right? But this is where we are now. We got a practice squad quarterback, and we're going to have a practice squad receiver being a top target in Farrell Cooper. So,
I saw that show on Netflix, QB1, Behind the Lights. I remember it was like the first series, and then he went to Georgia, and he was pretty bad in the senior year at Georgia, and then his stock just collapsed. And then didn't he say some racist things?
That's never good. That's why start Kyle Rudolph.
I mean, I was astonished that he was even drafted with the racist things that he said in social media, and now he's in the Giants after bouncing around practice squads for ages. I mean, you were saying from your here he doesn't have a good arm. I mean, what can he give us?
He's gonna give us nothing. Does he run? I don't know if he's more mobile than Mike Glennon, probably, but he can't throw very well. None of our quarterbacks this year have been able to get the ball downfield because we don't call plays to do that. So I don't know. Maybe he's exactly what they want. Throw it short and see if you can get some yards after the catch. I'm not looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a bloodbath Sunday, and if we put up remotely anything close to 10 points, I'll be happy. Because I don't know if we're going to see the end zone. I know the Chargers defense is kind of, up and down what they do every single week, but this is the Giants offense that we weren't able to score against Kansas City when they have a terrible defense. Tampa Bay's defense wasn't even that good, and we didn't score against them unless Brady threw a pick. That was the only time we got in the end zone. Our only touchdown came from an offensive lineman, so we can't score. I'm not confident in anything. Jake Fromm doesn't show me anything that be like, hey, maybe we can start moving the football. Nothing excites me on this offense.
Doesn't it speak to a lack of plan from Dave Gettleman that he had no backup to Daniel Jones? Now, Daniel Jones has not been healthy at all. He's not played a full season yet. Healthy, No. So he didn't really have a proper backup for him. Glennon is not really a kind of backup quarterback that you want. You certainly don't want him to be playing games. You just proved that right there. He was missing wide open Saquon Barkley. He was just dropping balls, and then he was missing screens. And he was missing any kind of moderate pass over 10 yards. He was missing them all. That's not someone that you want at quarterback. And we had no backup behind him. We're looking at just practice squad guys who should never, ever see a football field. And now they were so bad that he's even having to go and look at other practice squads and pick up Jake Fromm. That just speaks to a lack of planning. It's just this whole roster is in shambles. The whole Giants roster is in shambles. Dave Gettleman is a shambles of a general manager. I mean, it's crazy that somebody that we've just signed last week is suddenly going to have to master a whole new system and walk in and start on Sunday. It just speaks to where the Giants are. It's really. It's hard, man. It's really hard. I mean, I know as old school fans, we're brought up through great times. I mean, we've seen a lot of Super Bowls. We've seen Super Bowl appearances. We've been there. Now, over the last 9 out of the last 10 years, we've been the worst team in football. And the reason for that is John Mara trusting the wrong guys. And we're stuck with Gettleman, and Gettleman's just been almost worse than Jerry Reese, which is almost impossible. But he's certainly in that realm. I think he probably is.
Yeah, that is true. But on that note, we're going to wrap this up for today's episode. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. Let's try to hope for better days in the future, my friend, because it is very, very bad in Giants land. But on that note, we will see you guys next time. Let's go, Giants, and peace out.
Peace out.